Let's dig into the details of this ongoing policy debate. Mamatwele Sebe is the president of the General Industries Workers Union in South Africa. He's joining us now live on the program from Johannesburg. Mr. Sebe, thank you for your time this evening. So I want to start our conversation with comments from the Communications Minister in Parliament not too long ago, a few hours ago in fact, and he says the ministry is not offering a special dispensation for Starlink and transformation is sacrosanct in the country. What's your reaction to what he told MPs today?
Well, I mean, they are trying to hide the fact that they are bending over to a company linked with somebody who has been relentlessly campaigning to assault South Africa's sovereignty and self-determination that was won through a bitter and a bloody struggles of the black working class in this country against the apartheid regime, against the British colonialism before it. And they know because of that, there's a backlash in the country. This is somebody who has been promoting false narratives about, white genocide and all of that. Because
and you're referring to Elon Musk here, to be specific, right?
Yes, absolutely. So it is only because of the backlash that they are trying to fudge the question of whether are they doing it to accommodate him. But the coincidence is just too much, and I think it's not lost on anybody that this is linked with the pilgrimage to Washington and the begging, humiliating begging at that, before, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, cabal around him, where basically South African, delegation was genuflecting.
Pre-pandemic, the automotive sector in South Africa, I believe this was a debate that was going on between 2017 and 2019. They had a somewhat similar conversation, right, with the government, and they got around that 30% requirement by setting up the Automotive Industry Transformation Fund. And more recently, last year, Microsoft also struck a somewhat comparable deal. They say, we're going to operate in South Africa, we'll invest here, we'll get a data center up and running, we'll also invest $72 million in the country. Assuming Starlink does something familiar, what are your options then as a union to stop that process?
Well, I mean, they have already been making serious concessions under pressure from predominantly foreign-owned powerful multinational corporations. And for instance, I mean, they've been lowering corporate tax or tax on corporate profits, from what they were about over 52% in 1992 when the apartheid came to an end, to 27% in the so-called special economic zones. That's about 15%. But also, they've been lavishing them with massive subsidies as well as concession to bend over the rules in order to accommodate them. The reality is these policies have only, reinforced the neocolonial subordination of the country to a domination of foreign, owned multinational corporations that have monopolized the private ownership of the economy, of the minerals, of the land, have condemned this country to being a quarry and a gardening for, mineral for extraction of raw minerals that are not being locally beneficiated.
That being the case, the fact of the matter is, as a union, do you have the legal option to go to court and sue, say, for example, Starlink or whatever the local subsidiary might be, or the communication minister or the communications ministry in their capacity and say, look, this is essentially in contravention of black empowerment policies. You cannot do this. You have to essentially go back to the drawing board and figure out a way of selling a 30% stake to local stakeholders. Would you pursue a legal option in court?
There are organizations that have indicated that they will certainly go to court. But I think the thing that you must also remember is that the so-called black economic empowerment policies are also not very popular that much with the workers, because this is an attempt at the creation of the black capitalist class that is just as ruthless in exploiting workers, as responsible as it is responsible for the crisis in the economy, where not only have they not been able to develop themselves into a black industrialized class, but they've dismally failed in meeting the most basic elementary needs of the working class for jobs, decent wages, and of course, abolition of poverty and everything that comes with it.
Just out of interest, Mr. Sebe, if, let's say hypothetically, if Starlink does say, okay, fine, we're going to sell 30% of the local subsidiary in the open market, as a union, would you make an investment in taking up part of that 30%?
Absolutely. I don't believe in union investments ourselves because that simply conflates the role and tie trade union movement in the whole political economic architecture for the management of capitalist system that exploit workers invariably and particularly in a neo-colonial capitalist system entail colonial slavery of the working class, where workers are actually earning wages that cannot even meet the most basic elementary demand or requirements to feed themselves and their families. The levels of devastating poverty that you see in this country is not just due to catastrophic levels of unemployment that is over 12 million in the country of 60 million people. It is also the fact that 75% of the workers are earning, well below what we call a poverty wage. So this is what we call the working poor, and that's the reason that we can never support that. But I think the issue here is the fact that you have the government that by its neoliberal policies, it has surrendered all the levers of economic power, particularly in the financial market, where they can be susceptible to these imperialist blackmails that we see, particularly from people like Elon Musk, who is not just a capitalist. This is a grandson of a Canadian fascist who left Canada to settle in South Africa in 1950 because he liked what happened. That is the election of an apartheid government, and this is somebody who continue to support an extremist right-wingers internationally and in this country in an attempt to reverse the gains of an anti-apartheid struggle.
One last question for you, sir, because we are running against the clock here. But in theory, Starlink's local subsidiary could perhaps float shares on the JSE in a restricted share sale, or the PIC or the local government investment groups could buy stakes as well. From your perspective, why are those options not being prioritized compared to the ministry's proposal to have equity equivalent alternatives similar to the deals we've seen in the automotive sector and with Microsoft?
I mean, there is no real business reason why that can happen, right? This is a company that obviously trades in open markets. Its shares are sold all the time. And even black economic empowerment, it doesn't mean black partners don't pay and they are being given shares for free. The reality is Elon Musk has a political campaign, and that is evident from his relentless assault on the sovereignty, on every attempt to deracialize the economy and transition away from the legacy of apartheid that his grandparents cherished, on the base of which was brought up, and his family accumulated wealth that is a basis for him attaining the status that he has in America after all. But this is somebody who is clearly and actively linked with a right-wing white supremacist groups in South Africa.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Mr. Mamatoele Sebe, President of the General Industries Workers Union in South Africa, joining us here from Johannesburg. Thank you for your thoughts.